Recently in my group, a question came up about when you should start to run Google ads. If you need a few extra leads, should you turn on a Google ad? When is the right time to do it so that you ensure you have enough leads? And so many more questions, all surrounding when and how to turn on paid ads. And you guys know I am a massive fan of paid advertising here for this brand. For Wedding Pro CEO, we do paid advertising every single month. We've been doing it for almost 2 years now. And honestly, I don't know that I can ever see myself turning that off. But as I've shared before on the podcast, and you'll hear me say in this episode, I still have not yet pulled the trigger in running paid advertising for Blush. I'm incredibly excited to do so, and I know that it's coming this year in 2024. And I'm actually really excited to hopefully be able to document that process for you from someone who's never run ads so you can see exactly what the process looks like. But in today's episode, Mark Chapman from the I Do Society and I are chatting all about the reasons that you should run ads and the things that you should do before you start ads. And we're also talking about when ads may not be a great strategy for you at this time in your business, because there's no reason for you to just waste money in paying for ads that aren't going to actually work. So we're giving you lots of tips about exactly when to run ads, how to run ads, and how to know if you are a great candidate for it. So you guys, I know so many of you have DM'd me and said, Brandee, I'm so close on the ads train. So this is going to be such a fun episode for you. Hey there, CEOs. This is the Wedding Pro CEO podcast, and I'm your host, Brandee Gar. I'm a wedding pro just like you who's built one of the largest planning firms in Orlando, Florida. But it wasn't that long ago when that success came with long days, sleepless nights, and little to no pay. Fast forward to today, and I have the business that I've always dreamed of: steady profit, a killer team, and weekends with my family. Over the past 3 years, I've taught more than 1,000 wedding pros how to do the same. My mission is to create a movement of wedding pros who are building a profitable wedding business that they've always dreamed of. Okay, Mark, I am so excited to have you back on the podcast. I always love chatting with you about all things ads. And so, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, and you do so much for your audience and your circle of influence. It's great to be here and just be a little part of that. You do amazing things, so thanks for having me.
Well, you're so sweet. I just could talk ads with you all day. And so Mark and I were talking before the show. We were like, okay, we're going to try to stay on track here. We're going to really make sure that we're answering all of your ads questions. And if you want to know a little bit more about Mark and Google ads specifically, go back and listen to episode 164, because Mark and I talked all about Google ads. That's one of our most popular episodes. We love that episode. But today we're going to talk a lot more in depth about things that work, things that don't work with ads, and just some different things that you can think about when you're starting to think about running Google ads, Instagram ads, Meta ads, TikTok, all the things.
Yeah.
So Mark, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready. Let's dive in. This is going to be such good information for wedding pros.
Yes. I definitely think that, at least from what I've seen, more wedding pros are open to running ads. But I think that there's a lot of maybe misconceptions. I don't want to say mistakes, but maybe misconceptions about how ads work. So can you kind of just give a brief overview of when is the best time to run ads, or who should even be thinking about running ads?
Yeah, I mean, your question is should I run ads or should I not run ads? That's in the mind of a wedding pro, because they want more business. Maybe they only want a certain amount more business, but they want more business. And advertising is a viable way to get more business. And that's the really long answer to that, but I'll give you as quick of an answer so we can dive into it deeper as possible, is that you should run ads if you have no more time to nurture your warm leads. If you're out of time for doing all the things to get warm leads to come into your business from your referral partners, from your venues, if you're a planner or things like that. And it kind of comes back to my story, actually, Brandee, where I was a wedding photographer and I was working 7 days a week and I was doing all the things and I was tired. And I actually started figuring out advertising because I wanted to buy my time back. And so there is a significant difference in the leads you get from advertising versus those warm leads who come into your business from other places. And so if you have more time and more investment of yourself to do with warm leads, go for it and do that there. If you want to grow beyond that, then it's time to start thinking about advertising. Does that make sense? I
It
feel like it's not
does.
always perfectly clear, but
Yeah, no, it really does. And as you know, I run ads for my coaching business, but anybody listening to this episode that's heard me say this multiple times, I still don't run ads for Blush yet. We're getting there, okay? We're getting there. But
yeah,
I found that to be true in my coaching business is the bigger we spend in ads, the less I have to go out and really like generate those leads face to face, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
it's so helpful because I'm like, I really love connecting with people in my DMs. I love it.
yep.
And so it's just been so great to have people like find me in an ad, come watch my Instagram for a little bit, then show up in my DMs, and I'm like, yes, this is working. I love it so much. So
Yeah.
that's a great point that you're saying there.
And one of the other things I know that you are constantly on your soapbox and sharing with your audience about is like having a balance between work and not being overwhelmed. And there comes a point in every wedding pro's business where like they reach that point of overwhelm, but they still could do more business. And so that's a really good time to consider like, okay, I don't have more brain space, even if you have the time, but you don't have the brain space because you want to spend time with your kids or your family or whatever. Taking that step to do advertising correctly can be one of those ways that you continue to grow your business and yet have the time to do the other things that make you you and that you enjoy doing, and you're not a slave to your business because you shouldn't be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things you just said there, Mark, was correctly.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
let's talk about that for a little bit. What would you say correctly means? Give us some touch points on that.
Yeah, I'm going to start with a really high level statement about doing it
Okay.
correctly is that couples today do not click an ad and book a meeting with you without
Hallelujah.
some way of starting to know, like, and trust you. So when I say correctly, we have to consider the end person who's going to see these ads and consider the way they shop. They don't just click ads and convert. They're going to find out all about you. They may click on your ad and visit your website, and they're in that discovery mode on Google, finding out what are the venues that exist near me. So they click on the ads, click on the organic results, figure out all the venues, but they didn't book a tour right then because that's not the mode that they're in. So making sure that you show up in multiple places multiple times and in multiple formats is what I mean by correctly. So if you run ads, you can't just do Google ads and be like, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of leads by turning a Google ad campaign on. You should be prepared to run ads on Google as well as a second platform like Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, or a second platform like TikTok, which is super awesome short form video, so that that couple sees you in multiple places multiple times. And I know it's a very high level statement, but it's really important to connect these two statements of like, am I ready to do ads? And am I ready to do ads correctly? You have to be willing to put in the time and money to make sure that couples see you again and again and again so you can earn their trust, because they're a super cold audience. They're not your warm leads. Is it possible to use ads to turn those cold audience people into warm leads? Yes, but multiple
It
places
takes time.
multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to be able to track back someone's journey that came from an ad. You know,
Yeah.
you're 100% right. People are not clicking the ad and being like, time to work with you. And it's so funny that you said that because I think this will resonate with some of our listeners. A lot of our listeners know I hired a CEO to run Blush, my planning company, this year. And I told her, I think we're going to start running ads in Q3. It's something I've been wanting to do. And now that we have the capacity, the team, I want to turn them on. I want to do this. And she was like, she's young, right? So she was like, yeah, my generation would literally never click an ad and buy from a wedding planner or any wedding pro. And I said, yeah, but that's the thing. Hey, CEO, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about how I help wedding pros 2 and 3 times their revenue in less than a year, I want to invite you to my free training, absolutely free, where I'm going to walk you through my exact sales strategy and how my company books more than 5 figures every single month in our planning firm, and how I teach my students to do exactly the same. Trust me, you do not want to miss this free training, and we have the link for you in the description below. And I think that's a misconception, is that you think an ad means what we used to think of ads, right? Which is like the banner at the top of Google, or like, hey, buy from me. But ads well done, and I'd love for you to touch on this. One, don't look like an ad. They say sponsored, obviously, but they're not just like, buy from me, like $200 off if you book your wedding with us today, right? Can you touch a little bit on that? Because I think that's a misconception for a lot of our listeners, is like, yeah, I'm never going to buy from an ad, so why would my people?
So the ad must be helpful. it must be
Yes.
relevant. And I know those are two really big subjective words that like don't mean anything in terms of ad copy or imagery. But here's an example of something that's working really well. We run a lot of TikTok ads. TikTok is amazing. I know people have feelings both good and bad about it, but the truth is that TikTok ads at the moment is incredible. And something we're doing with a lot of our bridal stores who work with us is that we are doing sort of educational TikTok videos that's an ad, like how to prepare for your bridal appointment, so that it is helpful, it's relevant, it gives them information that builds know, like, and trust, so that they're like, ooh, you know what? I think this is no one else has done this for me, and now I feel more confident about going into that experience that's very personal, and it's an ad.
Hmm.
Bam. You know what? It wasn't spammy. It wasn't buy from us. It was let's help you and educate you. And then that bride, she might hate ads because we're all over advertised too. Let's be honest. And
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
But she's like, this is different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting about that too, and I don't know if you can do this on TikTok, but how does retargeting work on TikTok? Is that
Yeah.
something that you can use, or can you use, I guess, the views on TikTok for other platforms, or how does that all work together?
You can actually use TikTok for retargeting as of the end of 2023. It's very exciting. They just rolled it out. Yeah,
Wow.
and you know, with retargeting, and we'll kind of define what that is really quickly. It's like
Yeah.
someone maybe visited your website and you want to show them an ad to follow up with them. So
Yeah.
retargeting is really powerful and helpful, especially if you need to build that know, like, and trust this cold audience. And so you can set up a retargeting campaign on TikTok where people have either interacted with your organic TikTok account or maybe they visited your website, and you want to nurture that relationship and eventually get them to book the appointment. It's really powerful for that.
That's so good. I love that you just touched on organic content,
Sure.
because I would love to know your thoughts on, can ads take the place of organic content? Like, can you start running ads and just be like, I'm all done. I don't need to show up organically on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
I wish that were the case, but those mostly young women who are doing the research to plan their wedding, those young couples are really scoping you out. They see your
Yeah.
business, and within 5 minutes on their smartphone, they are literally like they know everything about you. They've read the reviews, they've visited your website, they've visited your Instagram. So unfortunately, it doesn't give you an out to being present organically. And wouldn't that be nice if it did? But I also think that maybe there's a sense of like you can scale back a little bit organically, because if you're making a big effort with advertising, and that is one of your primary lead generation functions and sources, maybe you don't have to post every single day. Maybe you don't have to worry too much about it. Like, be present, be alive there,
Yeah.
but don't necessarily like, you can find a balance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I definitely think you can pull way back on organic content, because honestly, the point of making so much organic content is to get the algorithm to learn you and start
Yeah.
pushing out your content, right? Well, if your ads are doing that for you and they're already coming to your profile, it's really just a matter of like,
Yes.
it's now nurturing in your organic content, right?
Yep. That's exactly it. Yes.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so I we were talking a little bit before the show. Inside my group, there was quite a conversation last week with a wedding pro who was like, I need more leads, so I think I'm gonna run a Google ad. And the conversation sort of started to take a turn of like, it almost seemed like the conversation was, yes, turn on the Google ads when you want more leads, and then just turn it off, almost like a faucet. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I feel
Yeah.
like that's a strategy that might not work super
In
well.
2009, when I started Google Ads for my photography studio, that worked. That was the case.
Okay.
Instagram didn't exist, TikTok didn't exist, Facebook pages didn't exist, because that was the one place that people went to. It was like the new yellow pages, where it was like
Yeah.
you're all of a sudden showing up in the yellow pages, and some people listening aren't even going to know what the yellow pages are. But it worked then, but it absolutely does not work now. You cannot expect couples who are planning their wedding and searching and looking for vendors and venues and resources to see you once, decide that they love you and like you, and book an appointment with you. And for that reason, it is a long game. It is a long game that absolutely works, but you need to understand what the couple is doing online. And that means that they're shopping you, they're looking at you, they're looking at your competitors, and running an ad campaign for a week and then turning it off is going to waste your money, and you're going to be frustrated. You'll be like, advertising doesn't work. It absolutely does work, but it doesn't work like that.
Do you feel like advertising with ads is a long game? And let me describe what I think is a long game. So
Yeah.
I'll kind of give the timeline of what I think is a long game. So I would say Instagram and TikTok of social would be the fastest in my opinion, and SEO being the longest. Where do ads fall on that time frame, or do you think that TikTok and Instagram isn't the fastest? You can tell me that too, but
Oh, let me think about this. Well, I mean, like, SEO is really awesome and important, but it is a long game.
I feel like it's the longest, right? Like
Yeah,
SEO is a long game and it can pay off for a really long time
absolutely.
as well, but you can't start SEO today and you're looking at results. I personally think what I've seen really work is like 6 months you need to be really at it to
Yep.
start seeing a return on that. So
Yep.
do you feel like ads also feel it long? Because to me, Instagram, if I did consistent Instagram for 30 days, I would start seeing leads within that 30 days.
Yeah, well, here's maybe like the surprising answer to this with ads and the way we do ads at the I Do
Okay.
Society, which may be surprising to some people. So when we work with a company, we make sure that they're willing to do ads on Google and ads on Meta or TikTok, so that that couple does immediately start seeing you in multiple places multiple times. And because we do remarketing, we start with that Google Ads campaign because if they're searching for a bridal store, they're searching for a wedding planner, they intend to find one, and we track
Okay.
them on the website, and then we remarket to those folks on Instagram and or TikTok. And so it is a lot shorter of a game when done correctly, and then you're paying for it. And now it comes at a cost. You need about $20 a day to make that
Okay.
work, which is about $600 a month. And
Okay.
so it actually shortens the game when you do immediately pay to show up for that couple on their device on every app that they're using. And so it shortens the game a lot. But you're paying for it, and there's a strategy behind it.
That's interesting. And I'm actually so glad that you touched on the dollar amount because
Yeah.
I don't know that I've been able to get anybody to say a realistic dollar amount live. Like, I feel like we always
Yeah.
talk about it behind the scenes, right? So, talk to us a little bit more about that because I know that. I think a soundbite that's out there, which is true. One of my previous guests has said this, and I think it's true. But I'd love for you to kind of clarify this a little bit. Is that you can run ads for $1 a day,
Yeah.
so then why do you need $20 a day? Like, can you help everybody to understand maybe like how it all kind of comes together and why $20 a day feels like
Yeah,
a good
definitely.
start
So
here?
here's the deal with the reality with advertising budget. On Meta, you can create a campaign and you can say, hey, I want to target engaged women in this geographic area, whether it's a list of zip codes or it's a radius around your bridal store or your business or wherever. And Meta is going to tell you how many estimated number of engaged women are in that area. What
Okay.
we have found over the last 15 years of doing this, ever since Facebook ads began, is that you have about an audience of 10,000 brides in that area, and you need about $20 a day to make sure that you reach them on Facebook, on Instagram, in Messenger, in Reels, in Stories,
Mm.
so that they see you multiple times on that platform. And so the dollar a day conversation uh, will not get a business results that they want to see from advertising in a fast time frame. It may help you promote some of your content to help people see that content a little bit more,
Like
but
visibility. Yeah.
yeah, for like a little bit of visibility. But if you want to run an ad campaign where couples see you multiple times, which they need to see you multiple times because they're a cold audience in order to trust
Right.
you, you need to spend about $20 a day on one platform.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that's helpful to know too on one platform. And
Yep.
Meta is considered one platform with Facebook and Instagram, or would that be
Yeah.
considered two platforms?
No, it's one platform because what you do is you
Okay.
create a campaign in your Meta Ads account, and it distributes the ads depending on where your ideal audience is. Like, you tell Meta who you want to reach, and Meta's like, okay, if she's still on Facebook and she's one of those brides, we're going to show her ads on Facebook. If she's an
Okay.
Instagram bride, we're going to show ads there, and it does the work for you to show the ads where that ideal audience is, because Meta wants you to succeed. They want people to have relevant, helpful experiences, and so they do the work for you. And Meta is one platform covering both Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger as sort of almost a third platform in there.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then TikTok would be another platform, and then Google
Yeah,
would be another platform, right?
that's
So
right.
technically, would it be three possible platforms?
Yep. like a really ideal scenario, and this isn't for
Okay.
everyone, that's okay. An ideal scenario is that you have $20 a day on 3 platforms, and then
Okay.
you are experiencing like market saturation with those 10,000 brides. It's really cool to see happen. But it's a stretch for a lot of folks, and it's totally okay if you don't have that money in the beginning.
Yeah.
Our recommendation always is like do Google Ads for sure. Um,
Okay.
Plus one other platform. Whether you're more comfortable on Instagram, that's fine. If you're getting into TikTok, and that's a really powerful platform, do Google and TikTok, because they need to see you at least in 2 places. Otherwise, your money will not produce an ROI.
So one of the things that I've been talking about with Sophia, my CEO, is that we really want to make sure that when those leads come in, that
Yeah.
we are able to convert them, right? So
Yes.
can you touch on that, Mark? Because, we've been really looking at our inquiries through organic because I
Mm-hmm.
want to know, okay, if we're already converting 40% of our inquiries, what is our capacity if we start running ads and we triple our inquiries? Does that mean we're going to triple our conversion? Hopefully, right? But do we have the capacity to do that? So, can you
Mm.
touch on that a little bit of like what should somebody be prepared for, I guess, before they start running ads?
In terms of like what the lead experience is like when they convert, is
Yeah.
that what you
I
mean?
mean, I guess I would say like your team is most concerned about getting them the leads, right? And then
Right.
how they convert them is really on them, right? Like your team is to get them the leads, and then they
Yeah.
have to convert them. One of the things that my ads manager for my coaching business talked a lot about before she would even take me on as a client was she was like, I need to see your conversion rate for 3 months. And
Yep.
I don't think everybody necessarily does that or has to do that. But I guess one of my questions is like, is that something you encourage your students to do, or can you touch on that a little bit? That like
Absolutely. Yeah.
your job isn't to make them sales, your job is to get them leads, right?
Definitely not sales, but the conversion of those like of the traffic from the website into leads and what to do with those leads is super
Yeah.
important and something we talk about all day. And even though I kind of stay in my lane with advertising and creating those great ad campaigns to turn those people into leads, the
Yeah.
lead follow up is essential, because if you don't have a lead follow up process, or you're not willing to text couples these days, like you're not going to be able to convert them into a warm lead who knows, likes you, and trusts you. And so it is a really, really big part of what I do. And to speak on that on a high level,
Yeah.
that's actually maybe sorry to sound like a naysayer, but another thing, like you shouldn't run ads if you don't feel 100% confident in your ability to nurture leads into appointments of whatever type that needs to be, or the next step, whatever that needs to be for your business, because
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get those leads if you do the advertising campaigns right, but then you're not going to convert them, and you're gonna be like, well, these ad campaigns are terrible and they don't work, or it's not the right audience. When actually, a lot of times, to be honest, Brandee, some of us older folks, maybe like myself in the wedding industry, are a little bit tired, and we don't want to adapt our communication styles to do the things we need to do, like texting, and do it more conversational and not text them a 5-page email. I just planted a lot of seeds there. I know there's a lot of
Oh, I
different
know.
directions we could go.
I know. Okay, so I'm gonna take this tangent with you, Mark,
Let's
because
take
I
it.
have been watching your TikToks and I am so passionate about this. I swear I'm just gonna do a whole nother episode on just texting alone.
Yeah.
But it's something any one of my students would tell you. Like Brandee drills this into us every single day because
Yeah.
and you're so passionate about it on TikTok, which I love.
Yep.
You have to adapt your communication style because I'm a huge fan of automations,
Yeah.
But I think what people need to understand, especially when it comes to ad traffic, is Mark has mentioned this multiple times. You are pulling cold traffic in. So even though the cold traffic's coming in and you're nurturing them and things like that, they're still a colder lead than somebody that literally
Yep.
was referred to you by their favorite photographer who, they're like in love with. So when you just let an automation run in email, you're not creating the connection that has to be created. And by using texting, whether you get a dummy phone so they don't have your phone number, whatever you want to do, use a Google Voice number. Texting is an essential part of
Yep.
all lead process, but especially once you start running ads, right? And feel free to jump on the
100%.
soapbox, Mark, because
No,
I've seen your TikToks about this.
100%, absolutely. And I always use this example. I have actually a good friend who her profession is dog walking, and she actually has her own business, dog walking, and like that's the life she wants. She loves her life. She spends a ton of time outside. She loves dogs. She doesn't have a laptop, and she recently got engaged, and she does not want to use a computer to plan her wedding. And there are people who are texting her these 5-page emails about this, that, this, and that. And like, she's like, I don't even know what to do with this. Like, my brain can't process this. And she may not make a ton of money dog walking, but her parents sure still have a lot of money. And so, I mean, the money isn't the issue. It's like she is a person who is a super great bride for a lot of businesses, but these businesses are just not adapting to the way that she wants to communicate, and therefore they're losing a huge opportunity to have. She wants to buy a $10,000 wedding dress, and some of these stores are like, they're just Anyway, you get the idea.
They're not working around the communication, right? And I think
they're not doing it.
What's interesting to me, they're not doing it, and we are 100% going to create another episode on this about exactly how to run through this process, because I think it's so important, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I was obsessed with this TikTok that you created where it was like, so everybody's saying, okay, fine, I'll start texting, but they're just taking their email and putting it into a text.
Yeah. It's like, it was like 10 pages long, and you had to scroll probably 50 times to get to the end of it, to whatever the answer to the question was that you asked, or the person asked from the text message. What's your pricing?
And that does not work. That does not work. So there is a texting strategy, and honestly, at the end of the day, it's as simple as get in the process. Like, get in the process with them. Let your automation run, but treat every lead like they're your best friend who just got engaged, and you're so excited. And so you shoot a text. It's like, I'm so excited. This episode is definitely about ads, but I think this is such a massive piece of running ads, is really understanding how different the traffic is and how different you need to treat those leads. So I'm glad that we got to touch on that, because I really wanted to touch on that.
And it's such, I'm really glad you brought it back up too, because I mean, I can't say enough, like, as we're having this conversation, how advertising reaches a cold audience, and that is not a bad thing. It is a bad thing when you treat your cold audience the same as your warm audience, and you expect the same thing from them. And the whole conversation here about texting is that it's a way to make that cold audience conversational and to warm them up.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay, so one thing that we talked a little bit about, like, lead conversion, knowing your lead conversion. And one of the things I do want to encourage our listeners, if you're like, okay, Brandee, like, you're starting to really get me with these ads. Like, I think it's something that we're definitely going to do this year. I really want to encourage all of our listeners to go back. We're not even halfway through the year yet. I want you to go back through the beginning of the year and track every single lead that you've gotten so far, and really understand your conversion rate now, so that you can make an informed decision and say, okay, if Mark is able to help me get 2 times the leads I already get, do we have the capacity to take on this many more clients, right? Because you want to be smart about how many leads you're actually getting in. And whether you have the capacity to do that or not. So if you don't already track your leads, you can grab the lead tracker that I have. I think that would be really, really smart. We'll put the link in the show notes. But I want to make sure that all those leads Mark is getting you, that you're able to convert them. I think this is so important. So Mark, can you touched on a little bit, but like, who should not run ads? Because I know some people are listening and they're like, I don't know if I should run ads. Like, are there certain things that you should maybe not, like, you might not be a great candidate to run ads?
You should not run ads if you don't want to deal with people asking you simple questions like, what's your pricing right away? Or I don't know. That's not the best answer, but I just feel like it goes back to that cold audience. Is like, if you don't want to deal with that, like keep doing your warm leads. Also, if you have a really limited capacity, like a lot of planners, right? I have a goal of 20 weddings a year, and it's probably not a good fit for you if you have a very limited capacity, because the goal of ads is quantity and quality, and there's going to be a lot of money spent then on people who are looking for a date that you don't have available, and that it's just going to waste. It's going to spend a lot of money, and you're going to feel like it's wasted, and the person who reaches out to you is going to be frustrated. I don't know.
I agree with that. I think you really touched on a hot point. I think that a lot of wedding pros have, which is, don't ask me the pricing question right away. This was actually a Threads conversation the other day that got quite heated, and I was part of, but where people were saying, I hate it when somebody asks me that. I don't even want to respond. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's a buying question. Why would you not want them to ask you that? Like, I think it's a valid question.
Sure.
So, how do you feel about that? Like, I think that is a question that people would get a lot once they start running ads, right?
Remember the person we were talking about who's like, I don't someone in my generation would never click on an ad.
Yeah.
So that same person isn't going to book a meeting with you if they don't have any ballpark idea of how much your services cost. Transitioning from working with just warm leads to a cold audience requires that you be transparent at some point in that journey before they reach out to you about your pricing, or they're not going to reach out because they don't want to have the conversation. They don't want to book a meeting with you, book an hour of their valuable time with you to find out they can't afford you. It just doesn't work like that. So maybe another thing, don't do ads if you're not willing to put your pricing somewhere in that journey so folks can see it. And I know that's a really controversial topic in the wedding industry, and it has been for years. But what I know about advertising today is that couples are not going to book a meeting with you if they don't have any idea of what you cost.
So good. So good. And so true. Okay, so Mark, I have one more question that might be in two parts. But
cool.
So, listening to, we really want to have $600 a month per platform, ideally as an ad spend. That's not hard and fast, but that's an ideal budget. And then obviously plus the fee of your ads company that's managing your ads for you.
Yep.
So it's not a small cost, right? But
Correct.
How would it compare to maybe listing sites that people are already on? Not how does it compare in price, but how does it compare maybe in the ROI? Because a lot of wedding pros have no problem going straight to a listing site and being like, yep, here you go.
Yeah.
But they're afraid to run ads, myself included.
Those big listing sites have their place. Everyone knows we're talking about Wedding Wire and the Knot, right? They have their place in many businesses' journey and many businesses' success. But one of the things that I absolutely love about advertising on Google and Meta and TikTok is you choose the demographics. You choose who sees your ad, and that therefore your money is oftentimes much better spent than allowing anyone and everyone to see your ad or to see your profile and sorting through a massive amount of low quality leads. And I don't mean low quality people, I just mean people who aren't the right fit for your business. So Google and Meta and TikTok, you choose the age range, you choose their interests. Are they a dog person? Are they a cat person? Do they live in certain zip codes? If you have a past clientele and you know what zip codes they came from, you can put those specific zip codes into Google Ads and exclude the rest of them. And so you could probably hear the passion in my voice all day long. I talk with business owners who are like, I'm on these listing sites and it did a lot of good for me for a really long time, but I just don't feel like it's the same these days. And how do I do this differently? And that demographic targeting in these platforms is a game changer and a life changer for a lot of business owners. Not to be over dramatic, but it was for me. So, yeah.
No, I don't think that's over dramatic at all. I mean, I really do. Sometimes when I try to put it in perspective for some of our clients, I'm like, what would, 20 additional weddings a year do for you? Most wedding pros are charging $2,000-$3,000 for their base level package. That's not a small amount of money. And so it is possible when you're doing the right advertising to really double that revenue. And so I don't think you're overstating it at all. And I love that in your voice. Okay. Is there anything else that our listeners should know about running ads that you're just like, no, Brandee, before we close this episode, I have to let them know this?
Yeah. Actually, there was one thing we were talking about putting your pricing on your website that I actually had a thought afterward and started to circle back on it. But those warm leads who got referred by their friend or their sister or whatever, they already know your pricing. And so when you're like, I'm not putting my pricing on my website because I want that to be a conversation, all those warm leads talk to someone about it. And so they already know. And so not putting your pricing out there literally is just doing you a disservice. And I think that, that may be not everyone's cup of tea, but that's sort of my soapbox or the hill I'll die on today as it goes. Because it's so important to convert all that traffic that you're paying really good money for. And that's going to be the key to converting them.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you, Mark. Anybody who's listened to the podcast for a long time knows there was a time in the history of this podcast that I was Switzerland on the pricing issue. I didn't care. I was like, I don't care if you put it on your website or not. But I have firmly planted my feet in the side of, yes, you need to. And I think that comes with this generation who's coming up.
Yeah.
They are savvy buyers. They're smart. They do their research.
Yep.
And it's important. They're not going to spend their time with you if they don't have an idea of what your pricing is.
Yeah. And
And
a
so
business owner I
I
met
think
with
it's a
the
big
other
deal.
day actually asked this. He's like, "Well, what if they're in that super top of the funnel research phase where they don't even know how much they do live music for weddings? They don't even
Yeah.
know that live music for weddings costs $10,000, and I just spent my money on Google Ads to educate them that it costs $10,000." And I was like, "Well, that's okay because if we're doing
Yeah.
our job and they're seeing you in multiple places multiple times and we're remarketing to them, they learned about you and they weren't ready for it, but they see you over the next 90 days on Instagram and the videos on TikTok, and they're like, shoot, like,
Yeah.
okay, now I understand how much it costs and now I really want it." And I think that's a great example of how advertising
Mhm.
can work really well. And it isn't perfect at every stage of the journey, but it does work
Mhm.
incredibly well when it's done correctly. And hopefully, we talked about today a little bit of what done correctly means and gave
Yeah.
people a taste of that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, Mark, because to that exact scenario, if a lead came in where you weren't running ads and they came in, heard the $10,000 price tag, freaked out because they were still in that top of funnel stage,
They'd never
and
see you
then they
again.
never see you again, they're
Yeah.
going to book some other $10,000 band because you taught them. They
Yes.
never heard from you again and someone else did. So then they were like,
Yes.
oh, now I know it costs $10,000. Versus if you're running ads, you're staying top of mind consistently and you win the business. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big difference, is that people need to understand, yeah, you might be the one to educate them, but you're also the one staying top of mind. So I think that's a great example of why ads are so important to
Yeah.
be running.
It's
And
subconsciously that person's like, oh, that was my first kiss, like that was the first person I
yes,
learned about. And they remember that
yes,
stuff. They may not think they remember it, but they really do. They remember the first
yeah,
experience they had to learn about something that was really important to them. And so
yeah.
that is a great example of how, like, it comes around, but you got to be
Hmm.
consistent.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Okay, Mark, tell everybody where they can connect with you, because I know some of our listeners are listening and they're like, okay, I'm in. Where do I go?
TheAdooSociety.com is our website, and you can learn all about our team and our services and book a meeting to speak with me personally about advertising for your wedding business and figure out how much it's going to cost for you and what we should do and all the details. Happy to help with that.
I love it. I love it. Okay, and then go check out Mark's TikTok too. I'm going to just give a little
Yes.
plug for that, because
Thank you.
he does a lot of education over there with advertising, but also like conversion and traffic and all that kind of fun stuff. So go check that out as
I
well.
love it. Thanks,
And
Brandee.
of course, Mark, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
Always.
If this video was helpful, make sure to check out some of the other videos that we've linked in the description below to help you build profit, increase your sales, and get out of the overwhelm.